Good day. I'm Menachem Avichael for Trust in Hashem. Today is the 21st day of November in the year 2025 by the Gregorian calendar. Today we're going to be covering in the book of Bereishit, the first book of the 5 books of Moses, the Torah, the sixth Parsha in the book of Bereishit, Toldot. To begin this Parsha, I want to start at the end of the last Parsha, where it says that Yishmael expired and died. Now with Abraham, it just said Abraham expired. It doesn't say he died. So why would there be such a difference between them? Well, this Parsha explains it. It starts out with the genealogy. These are the generations of Yitzhak. So the Torah is coming to tell us by this order that Yitzhak's generations cannot start until Yishmael, not necessarily Yishmael the person, but his character traits die off. This idea of this rampant killing of people and, taking other people's property, that's not Hashem's way. That is not Hashem's way. That's why it starts out this way. Now it starts by Yitzhak praying. He was 40 years old, right, when he's praying. And then when Rebecca has children, he is 60 years old. So for at least 20 years we know he prayed to have children with Rebecca. Right now that's nice to know, but it's going to become even more important later on when Rachel asks Yaakov to pray for her to have children. And he actually refuses to do it. In fact, he even tells her off in a way. We're going to see later on in those parshas how that affects what happens between Rachel and Yaakov. That will come later. Something to look forward to. It's like the old newsreels they used to have where they would end it in a way that you had to come back the next week to see what was going on. If you would like to be notified of whenever I put up something on Trust in Hashem, please go down below and click the subscribe or follow button, and that way you will get a notice of any time. Check the mark to say all, that you want all my notices. I don't really put out a lot of them. This way you will get a notice that something new has come up, and you'll be able to see it and, more important, hear it. So now we continue on, and we go to verse 28, verse 3, okay? And this is after Yaakov gets one blessing, and Esav gets another blessing, right? And but both of their blessings, both the one to Yaakov and the blessing to Esav, both of them are really more dealing with man, how they're going to be operating within the world and things like that. But then later on, when Yaakov is leaving, right, and he's going to get another blessing from Yitzhak. And this is the real blessing, the blessing of the inheritance of Israel. And Isaac says to Yaakov, may Hashem bless you, make you numerous and increase you so that you become an assembly of tribes. Isn't that exactly what happens to Yaakov? Does he not become 12 tribes, his children? So the blessing did come true. And then in line 4, it continues. May Hashem give you the blessing of Abraham to you and to your children, so that you may take possession of the land where you are dwelling, which the Lord gave to Abraham. So here you see that Yitzhak continues the blessing and the passing of the promise of the land to Yaakov. It was promised to Abraham originally by Hashem, and then Hashem promised it to Yitzhak, and now Yitzhak, Isaac, is promising it to Yaakov. Later on, it will be reiterated and repromised by Hashem directly to Yaakov. This is very important for the world and what's going on today. Now we can go back to chapter 27, line 29. I skipped that one on purpose because it's really more appropriate to talk about it after Yaakov receives the blessing of the land. And in chapter 27, verse 29, Yitzhak says, "Cursed will be he who curses you, and blessed will be he who blesses you." I mentioned this in an earlier Devar Torah. I mentioned this, that how I was so surprised when J.D. Vance came to America. And in essence, he cursed Israel. He talked against Hashem by saying that Judea and Samaria, Yehuda and Shamron, its real names, will not be part of Israel, that he will not allow it, that Israel, no, you can't do that. And what was even more disappointing was Marco Rubio backing that up. I was very disappointed that he said, I never thought he was not a God-fearing man, but actions speak louder than words. And then, of course, President Donald J. Trump says the exact same thing. Every nation that has tried to stand up to Hashem, from Pharaoh to the Greeks to the Romans to the Spanish Inquisition to Great Britain, all of them, Germany, every single one of them have perished. Is America next? Is that what you want to do to your country, President Donald J. Trump? Maybe you should think a little bit harder about what you're doing. But of course, that's up to you. This is Menachem Avichayel for Trust in Hashem. Have a good day. Shabbat Shalom.